They told you to be kind, to forgive, to be soft, to never fight back, to put others first, to let things go. And you believed them, because that's what you were taught. That kindness was strength, that humility was power, that if you just kept giving, the world would give back. But it didn't. It took, and took, and took, until there was nothing left of you but exhaustion, regret, and silence. You were taught that being the better person would bring peace, that being patient would bring respect, that love would always be returned. But in reality, your silence was mistaken for weakness, your patience for permission, your love for availability, and your forgiveness for forgetfulness. They didn't love you more for giving. They just expected more. They didn't respect you for being kind. They just pushed further. They didn't value your softness. They exploited it. And still, you blamed yourself. You thought maybe if you gave a little more, they'd come around. Maybe if you kept forgiving, they'd finally change. Maybe if you stayed just a little longer, they'd finally see your worth. But the truth is, they saw it. They just didn't care, because this world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards power. It doesn't value selflessness. It values usefulness. And the moment your kindness no longer benefits them, they discard you. You became the fixer, the healer, the forgiver, the one who always showed up, even when nobody showed up for you. You became the emotional dumping ground, the reliable fallback, the therapist, the cheerleader, the rescuer, all rolled into one. But when you needed someone, silence. When you broke down, distance. When you stopped giving, they disappeared. You thought kindness was your armor. But in this world, kindness without strength is a wound, a bleeding spot predators smell from miles away. Here's the truth no one told you. If you give without discernment, you become a target. If you forgive without boundaries, you become a victim. If you stay soft in a world built on manipulation, you don't get peace, you get played. And still, you kept going, because they told you it was the right thing to do. That being cold was mean, that being distant was selfish, that standing up for yourself was too much. So you stayed quiet, you tolerated, you endured, and they praised you for it, because your silence served them. But inside, you were screaming for someone to see you, to recognize your effort, to finally treat you the way you treated them. But it never came. Because when you train people that your needs don't matter, they believe you. And when you teach the world that your time, your love, and your presence come cheap, they will never pay full price. The lie was beautiful. Be kind, and you will be loved. But the truth is sharper. Be kind, and you will be used. Unless your kindness has teeth, you're not weak for feeling this. You're not broken for reaching your limit. You were just never taught how to protect yourself, how to build walls without turning to stone, how to walk away without apology, how to be kind without being consumed. That's what we're going to learn now. Because this world doesn't need more people who give everything. It needs more people who give wisely, people who are kind and dangerous, people like the wolf who smiles but never bows. You kept being the good one, the one who never asked for much, the one who forgave before they even said sorry, the one who showed up when no one else would, the one who gave while receiving nothing in return. And at first, it felt noble, like you were doing something right, like one day, all this goodness would come back to you. But it didn't. It just made you smaller, quieter, invisible. You became the emotional sponge, soaking up everyone's mess, but never getting wrung out. You were the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed over conflict, even if it meant swallowing your own voice. And eventually, you began to disappear inside yourself. Because when you're always the one adjusting, bending, softening, there's no room left for your own truth. Being too good comes with a hidden tax. You lose yourself. You forget what it's like to have boundaries. You forget how to say no without guilt. You forget what it means to feel safe in your own skin. You become addicted to being needed, even if it's killing you. Here's what no one tells you about chronic kindness. The more you give without balance, the more you attract people who only take. Not because they're evil, but because you never taught them otherwise. You trained them that you'd always be there, that you'd always pick up the pieces, that they could disrespect you on Monday and you'd show up smiling on Tuesday. That's not love. That's learned helplessness, and it's destroying you. The cost of being too good is this: you give more than you can afford. You expect less than you deserve. And you settle for connections that starve your soul. You become surrounded by people, yet lonelier than ever. Because deep down, you know they don't see the real you. They see the version that serves them. The version that says yes. The version that never complains. The version that doesn't demand space. And here's the brutal truth. People will never stop taking as long as you keep offering. They will never learn to respect you as long as you fear being disliked. They will never grow if you keep shielding them from the consequences of their own behavior. There's a difference between being kind and being compliant. There's a difference between having a big heart and having no boundaries. You weren't born to be the emotional crutch for others. You weren't meant to be a container for everyone else's pain. You deserve space. You deserve rest. You deserve reciprocity. But you'll never receive it until you start demanding it with your actions. That's not rudeness. That's responsibility. Responsibility for your own peace, your own worth, your own survival. Because in a world that eats the kind, the ones who survive are not the loudest or the toughest, but the ones who know when to stop bleeding for people who won't even offer a bandage. You're not selfish for walking away. You're not cruel for going silent. You're not heartless for choosing yourself. You've simply realized you can't pour into people who poke holes in your cup. You can't rescue those who keep jumping back into the fire. You can't fix people who benefit from being broken. This is your wake-up call. To stop being the one who always saves others at the cost of yourself. To stop measuring your value by how useful you are. To stop confusing being needed with being loved. Because real love doesn't come from obligation. It comes from mutual respect. And if you don't respect your own limits, why should anyone else? At some point, you wake up. Not bitter, not broken, but clear. You stop asking why they treated you like that. You stop begging for closure. You stop hoping they'll come back and realize what they lost. Because now you realize it wasn't about you. It was about what you allowed. It was about how long you stayed, how little you asked for, how loud your silence was. This is when the transformation begins. You don't become evil. You don't become cold. You don't lose your heart. You become selective. You become strategic. You become the wolf. The wolf isn't loud. The wolf doesn't chase. The wolf doesn't beg for acceptance. The wolf observes. The wolf waits. And when it moves with certainty. You start building boundaries like brick walls, not to shut people out, but to keep your peace in. You stop explaining yourself to those who misinterpret you on purpose. You stop showing up for people who disappear when you need them. You stop being available to people who only call when they're in crisis. You give, but not blindly. You forgive, but not repeatedly. You love, but not unconditionally. Because now you understand. Unconditional love without accountability is how you become prey. The wolf knows its power. It doesn't waste energy proving it. And neither will you. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to defend your choices. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your silence will say everything. Your absence will do the talking. Your boundaries will speak louder than your explanations ever could. You begin to walk different, speak different, look different. Not because you've changed who you are, but because you've reclaimed it. You no longer shrink to make others feel safe. You no longer bend to make others comfortable. You no longer carry people who refuse to walk. And suddenly, they notice. They call you cold, selfish, arrogant. But that's just what people say when you stop letting them use you. Let them talk. Wolves don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. You'll notice something else too. The world treats you differently when you carry yourself like someone who can walk away at any moment. You stop attracting chaos. You stop entertaining drama. You stop tolerating nonsense. Because now, your peace costs too much to trade. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about becoming heartless. It's about learning to survive with your soul intact. It's about being soft in your heart, but sharp in your mind. Kind in your tone, but firm in your standards. It's about smiling, not because you're naive, but because you already see the game being played. You've become the wolf, not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you finally understand. Being good doesn't mean being eaten. It means being strong enough to choose who deserves your goodness. And that strength, that discernment, that calm, quiet, calculated energy, that's what makes you powerful. Let others chase validation. Let others overextend themselves for love. Let others bleed for people who wouldn't even clap if they succeeded. You move different now. You're not available for manipulation. You're not accessible to disrespect. You're not present in places where you're only tolerated. You don't need everyone. You only need those who recognize your value without being reminded. You've stopped being the sheep. You've stopped being the prey. You've stopped being the nice person who finishes last. Now, you're still kind. But now, you're dangerous too. They told you that kindness was about always being available, that it meant giving without question, helping without pause, loving without limits. But that's not kindness. That's submission. That's emotional enslavement wearing a pretty face. Real kindness is strategic. Strategic kindness knows when to give and when to walk away. It knows the difference between helping someone and enabling their self-destruction. It doesn't ask, how do I keep everyone happy? It asks, is this worth my energy? Because your energy is a currency. And every time you spend it on someone who doesn't value it, you go bankrupt. Emotional detachment isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. It's not about never caring. It's about caring with boundaries. It's saying, I'll support you, but I won't save you. I'll listen, but I won't absorb. I'll love you, but I won't lose myself in the process. You see, the wolf doesn't get emotionally entangled in every fight. It doesn't howl every time someone throws a stone. It moves only when the moment demands it. And that's your power too. You don't need to be the fixer anymore. You don't need to be the emotional medic. You don't need to carry others' wounds as your own. You are not a shelter for chaos. You are not a rehab center for emotional addicts. You are not a savior. You are a sovereign. Strategic kindness means choosing where to give. It means investing only where there's return, not in the form of money, but in the form of mutual respect. You no longer give because you're afraid of being disliked. You give because you want to. You help because it aligns with your values, not because it feeds your insecurity. Emotional detachment is the ultimate discipline. It's not numbness. It's not indifference. It's refusing to let your peace be dictated by the dysfunction of others. It's seeing someone spiral and choosing not to join them in the fall. It's knowing that not every argument is worth winning. Not every person deserves a reply. Not every insult requires a reaction. This is hard at first, because you've been conditioned to believe that being good means being emotionally available 24/7. But it's a trap, because when everyone has access to you, you lose access to yourself. Your creativity? Drained. Your joy? Muted. Your clarity? Gone. Because your emotional bandwidth was hijacked by people who mistake access for entitlement. You must learn to guard your gates. That doesn't mean building walls. It means installing filters. Not everyone gets the full version of you. Not everyone gets your time, your mind, your energy. Some people only get silence. Some people only get distance. Some people only get what they've earned. And that's not cruelty. That's emotional hygiene. You're no longer a dumping ground. You're a fortress. You're no longer the hero in someone else's tragedy. You're the author of your own story. You're no longer sacrificing your peace for their chaos. You're choosing your clarity over their comfort. And that's how you rise. The more emotionally detached you become, the more power you reclaim. You stop reacting. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving your worth. Because you finally realize your peace is not a gift. It's your ground. And it's no longer up for negotiation. Kindness without boundaries is weakness. Compassion without strategy is a trap. But when you merge heart and mind, when you pair empathy with strength, love with logic, warmth with wisdom, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of person people respect instantly. Not because you're cold, but because you've mastered the temperature. You don't just survive the world that eats the kind. You make it think twice before ever trying you again. The world doesn't attack you with fists. It attacks you with expectations, with guilt, with silence, with twisted kindness that hides control. Welcome to psychological warfare disguised as love, packaged as loyalty, delivered in the voice of someone who claims to just care. But the wolf? The wolf knows the game. Here's what manipulation often sounds like. After everything I've done for you, you've changed. You're too sensitive. You're being selfish. I didn't mean it like that. Sound familiar? These aren't just words. They are tactics. Tactics designed to keep you small, obedient, and emotionally dependent. Manipulators don't want you to grow, because growth means distance. Distance means independence. And independence means they can no longer control your emotions. So they weaponize your empathy. They twist your guilt into a leash. They turn your kindness into a collar. And every time you try to pull away, they tighten it. With shame, with obligation, with silent punishment. To survive in this world, you must learn to recognize these patterns. Because the most dangerous prisons don't have walls. They have expectations. The most toxic chains don't make noise. They whisper, "You owe me." And the most manipulative people don't raise their voices. They lower them and speak to your heart like it's theirs to rewire. But here's the truth. You don't owe loyalty to people who guilt you into staying. You don't owe patience to those who weaponize your peace. You don't owe forgiveness to those who repeat their offenses like it's a routine. The wolf survives not by attacking, but by understanding patterns. You start to see beneath the words. You hear the unspoken contracts. You notice the energy behind the smile. And you respond not with panic, but with strategy. You begin to say no without fear. You detach without warning. You vanish without explanation. Because you've learned that silence is louder than shouting. Distance is sharper than confrontation. And disappearance is sometimes the most powerful closure. Emotional survival means this. You stop asking others for permission to feel. You stop seeking validation from people who benefit from your doubt. You stop playing games designed to keep you guessing and start building a mind that doesn't flinch at solitude. Because solitude isn't punishment. It's where clarity lives. It's where you see who you are, without the noise, without the roles, without the pull of everyone else's agenda. Manipulative people don't fear confrontation. They fear consistency. They fear boundaries. They fear your ability to say, "I see what you're doing, and I'm no longer participating." And that's your new weapon, awareness. You no longer respond to their stories. You watch their patterns. You no longer get pulled into debates. You observe and choose distance. You no longer feel the need to prove you're good. You just leave the room with your peace intact. You are not their puppet. You are not their audience. You are not their emotional punch bag. You are the wolf. You are quiet, but calculating. And the more you detach from dysfunction, the more the world starts to reveal who's been feeding off your light and who's been dimming it for their own comfort. They will call you cold. They will call you fake. They will say, "You've changed." Let them. Let the manipulators panic. Let the users scramble. Let the leeches search for new hosts. Because the moment you see the game, you win by leaving the table. And from that moment on, you stop surviving. You start dominating. Not with cruelty, but with calm. Not with noise, but with presence. Not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. The world will tell you to be louder, to shout your worth, to prove your value, to explain why you walked away. Don't. The wolf never roars. It watches. It calculates. And when it moves, no one sees it coming. You've already said everything you needed to say by not saying anything at all. Your absence spoke volumes. Your boundaries said more than 1,000 justifications. Your silence was louder than their noise. This is cold power, not icy, not cruel, but unshakable. It's the calmness you wear when people try to bait you, the smirk you give when someone underestimates you, the inner stillness you keep while the world spirals around you. You're no longer here to be liked. You're here to command respect. You're no longer here to win everyone's approval. You're here to preserve your energy. Cold power isn't about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally sovereign. You don't react. You respond when it serves you. You don't please. You choose with intention. You don't follow. You lead, even if it means walking alone. This world is loud. desperate, clamoring for attention, likes, approval. But while they chase eyes, you chase impact. While they perform for applause, you build your world in silence. While they bleed to be seen, you guard your soul like a throne. Because now you understand, power doesn't yell, it whispers and still gets heard. You don't need the world to clap for you. You don't need closure from those who broke you. You don't need revenge on those who betrayed you. You've outgrown the circus. You've risen above the noise. And the most poetic part? They'll feel it. In the stillness. In your indifference. In your complete absence from the roles you used to play for them. They'll wonder if you still care. You don't. They'll hope you miss them. You don't. They'll expect you to come back. You won't. Because now, you've tasted peace. You've felt your own power. You've looked in the mirror and finally seen the wolf smiling back. This is your rebirth, not into someone new, but into who you were before the world taught you to beg for love, to shrink for approval, to bleed for belonging. You've unlearned the lie. You've reclaimed your instincts. You've rebuilt your mind. You are still kind. But now, only to those who've earned it. You still care, but from a distance that protects your soul. You still love, but with a discernment that's sacred. And most importantly, you still smile. But now it's the smile of someone who knows the game, who sees through the noise, who chooses peace over performance, who can love deeply and walk away quietly. You are not broken. You are reborn. You are not soft. You are strategic. You are not heartless. You are healed. And now, the world has no power over you that you don't give it. Because you've finally realized, in a world that eats the kind, you don't need to become cruel. You just need to become calculated. You don't need to become a monster. You need to become the wolf with a smile. If this message hits something deep inside you, then understand this. This world won't get easier, but you can get stronger, smarter, colder, quieter. And if you're done being prey, if you're done explaining yourself to people who never listened, then hit subscribe, because this is just the beginning. More truths are coming. More mental weapons are being sharpened. And in this war of minds, you'll want to return as the wolf.